Welcome everyone to my channel. In today's video, we will discuss part 2 and 3 of the book, The Autobiography of Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, and kindly consider donating. The donation link is provided in the description below. To gain access to summaries of books, please check out our Ko-Fi channel link below and follow us for exclusive content. Part 2, Johannesburg. Near Johannesburg, Mandela sees a gold mine for the first time. He and Justice arrange for work through Dr. Xuma, a friend of Jongintaba's, but only told him part of the truth. When they get to the mine, the foreman, Piliso, has a job for Justice, but only a clerical one because he didn't expect Mandela. When Piliso learns they're running away from home, he gets angry and takes back the job offer. Mandela stays with his cousin, Garlick Mbekeni, for a while, then moves in with a local preacher and his wife. He doesn't tell them he ran away, which makes the preacher feel tricked. Reverend Mabutho kicks him out, but helps him find a new home with Mr. Xuma, one of the few black landowners in the Alexandra area near Johannesburg. He starts working as a clerk at a law firm while studying for his BA at the University of South Africa in the evenings. Although the law firm is progressive for hiring a black clerk, he still faces discrimination, such as when a white secretary tells him to buy her shampoo. He also meets other clerks his age and goes to parties where people don't focus on skin color. As he spends more time around white people, he sees the unfairness black South Africans face and learns that no matter how hard he works, some people won't respect him. He also realizes that politics can be complicated, as the law firm is both progressive and still influenced by racism. Life in Alexandra has its ups and downs for him. The area is overcrowded, and while Mr. Xuma isn't rich, he is kind and generous. He reconnects with Ellen Cabin, a friend from Helltown, and falls in love with her. However, their relationship is difficult because she is Swazi and not Xhosa, which goes against society's expectations. Later, he falls in love with Didi, one of Xuma's daughters. In 1941, Jongintaba visits Johannesburg, and he feels nervous about meeting him. However, they repair their relationship, and he gains his approval again. Jongintaba is tougher on Justice, who, as the biological son, has more responsibilities. 6 months later, in 1942, they learn that Jongintaba has passed away, and the brothers return to Mkhekezweni for the funeral. Justice has to take on new duties, while he goes back to Johannesburg to finish his degree. After completing his BA, he starts studying law at the University of Witwatersrand. He learns more about African liberation and becomes friends with some Indian students, who are also fighting for their freedom. Like South Africa, India was once colonized by the British. He sees the Indian students as potential allies rather than rivals, which helps him focus on breaking down racial and ethnic divisions. Part 3, Birth of a Freedom Fighter. He isn't sure when he became politically aware, but being a black South African made him political from the start. The world is changing, with Churchill and Roosevelt signing the Atlantic Charter in 1941, though many doubt the promises of democracy. In response, the African National Congress, ANC, creates its own charter, calling for full citizenship for all African people. He meets Walter Sisulu, a mentor whose home becomes a meeting place for activists. He also meets Anton Lembede, a passionate lawyer who believes that for liberation, African people need to overcome an inferiority complex and celebrate their own beauty. While spending time with activists at Sisulu's home, he meets his first wife, Evelyn Mays. In 1946, one of the largest mine strikes in South African history occurs, with many people, including the communist J.B. Marks, being arrested. The government crushes the strike, partly to target communists. At the same time, a new law is introduced to restrict the movement and property ownership of Indian people in South Africa. Meanwhile, he and Evelyn move into an apartment in Orlando, where she gives birth to their first son, Madiba Thembekile, called Thembi for short. A clergyman named Michael Scott comes to live with them. In July 1947, Lembede suddenly becomes sick and dies at the age of 33, which shocks activists like Sisulu. Later that year, the ANC and 2 Indian resistance groups signed the Doctors' Pact, agreeing to work together. This passage shows how his personal and political lives are closely connected. His growing involvement in politics happens alongside the birth of his son, reflecting his increasing responsibilities and his desire to shape the future. In South Africa, only white people can vote in elections, and the National Party, led by Dr. Malin, takes power. The party rejects both African people and the British, having sided with Nazi Germany during World War II. Their main policy is apartheid, which means separating African people from white people. This victory surprises many, including the United Party, which is also led by white people, with General Smuts having fought against the Nazis. Malin begins to put apartheid into action. Dr. Xuma, head of the ANC, disagrees with the more activist approaches of some members, so they rally behind Dr. Moroka to replace him. Eventually, Xuma resigns and Mandela, whose influence is growing, takes on many of his responsibilities. Strikes happen across the country despite the threat of severe punishment, and the ANC struggles to work with other groups, such as the Marxists. Mandela feels torn between the more radical activists who want immediate change and the more cautious ones who want to work within the current system. He sides with the radical activists but also sees the challenges and the necessity of coordinating efforts with other groups, like the Marxists, toward a common goal. In response to apartheid, the National Party enacts laws requiring South Africans to register their race and live in racially segregated areas. They also restrict the voting rights of coloreds, mixed-race individuals, who previously had voting privileges. Meanwhile, Nelson Mandela, an unusual figure as a black man with a car in South Africa, begins driving activists, including Dr. Moroka, and leading civil disobedience campaigns inspired by Gandhi. On June 26, 1952, the Defiance Campaign begins, with Mandela and other activists breaking apartheid laws intentionally, resulting in many arrests. The government harshly responds, using propaganda to discredit the activists and infiltrating local ANC branches. At one point, he is arrested as part of a coordinated crackdown on leaders of the campaign. Dr. Moroka, also arrested, causes controversy within the ANC by choosing to represent himself instead of joining the other leaders' trial. He distances himself from communism and even rejects the idea of racial equality to secure a lighter sentence. The activists are sentenced to 9 months of hard labor, though their sentences are suspended for 2 years. While the campaign raises awareness, Mandela regrets not ending it at its peak, as suggested by Dr. Xuma. Dr. Moroka's actions of betraying the ANC's principles by seeking leniency contrast sharply with the earlier decision to show mercy as a student prefect, reflecting the importance of unity to both him and the ANC. This pattern of loyalty and justice becomes a recurring theme as he faces continued trials and imprisonment. That concludes our discussion of parts 2 and 3 of the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. We've covered Mandela's early experiences in Johannesburg, his growing involvement in the ANC, and his fight against apartheid. His personal struggles, relationships, and political awakening have shaped the path toward his leadership. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel through the donation link in the description. Don't forget to visit our Ko-Fi channel for exclusive book summaries.